Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another episode of After the Buzzer, the show where I recap the NBA games from the night. It was a long one. This video is coming a little bit later in the day than the previous one did because Nuggets versus Timberwolves didn't end till 2 a.m. last night here on the East Coast, so I didn't want to stay up all night making the video, so that's why it's coming here now. Hope y'all can forgive me, but we're going to begin with Suns versus Clippers, which is a really fun game and a series that I've really been looking forward to. Of course, you've got star power on both sides with Kevin Durant, Chris Paul, and Devin Booker. On the other side, you've got Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and Russell Westbrook, two teams with legitimate championship aspirations. However, the PG injury has kind of taken a bit of wind out of this series' sails. If you don't know, Paul George is scheduled to miss this entire series with an injury that he suffered against the Thunder a few weeks back, and that was a huge blow to the Clippers. Of course, when you lose your second best player, it does a lot to you in the playoffs, but in particular against a Suns team who me and many others are picking to win the Western Conference, it feels like almost a death blow. You're going to need Kawhi Leonard to do inhuman things even more than he typically does. You need the bench to step up in a big way. Tyronn Lue needs to coach the series of his life. The Clippers need a lot of things to go right for them to win this series, and Phoenix seems like the clear favorite. However, despite this injury kind of hindering the hype for the series a bit, Game 1 was amazing. It was a back and forth one all the way up until the end, and it was highlighted by a Kevin Durant-Kawhi Leonard duel, which is exactly what I was hoping for going into this series. When you have two guys who are arguably top 5 players in this league, especially when it comes to playoff time, you want to see them guard each other, you want to see them trade buckets, and that's exactly what we saw, specifically in the second half, but even overall over the course of the entire game. It was an amazing matchup. Beginning with Kevin Durant, he was really good. He finished this one with 27 points, 9 rebounds, and 11 dimes on just under 50% shooting. He was one board short of a triple-double, and he had 10 points in the fourth quarter. His shot making all game was incredible. I will never get sick of seeing Kevin Durant just raise up over defenders and drill shots that nobody else can make because he's just so much taller and so talented. And then, like I mentioned, with the 11 assists, his playmaking was elite. The Clippers were sending a lot of pressure at KD. A second he went around a screen, they were sending a couple guys to stop him, and Kevin Durant was consistently making the right reads. His playmaking has gotten better and better, honestly, ever since he got to Brooklyn. I feel like he's continuously improved as a playmaker. It's wild to say that he continues to improve on things this late into what is a top 15 career of all time, probably at this point, but he does. He just keeps seeming to get better, and the playmaking was amazing. They were setting intense pressure at him, but he made the right reads, especially in transition, where the Suns played some of their best basketball. When the game kind of slowed down, their offense stagnated a little bit. They'll have to figure that out, but in transition, Kevin Durant was dishing out dimes and just overall scoring at a high level. This was a great game from Kevin Durant, and he was probably the biggest reason why the Suns really swung this game in their momentum in the third quarter. When it felt like the Clippers were maybe going to end up stealing this one, the Suns swung things back their way in the third. But then came Kawhi Leonard, who has been one of the best playoff performers in the entire league, basically his entire career, and honestly is going to go down as one of the greatest playoff performers of all time. If you don't believe me, go look at his playoff stats. They are ridiculous, and it feels like every time he gets these big moments, regardless of how much he load managed over the course of the season, what injury he was dealing with, how many games he played, it doesn't matter. The second you get to the playoffs, Kawhi Leonard is capable of playing 40 plus minutes, and he's going to be elite in every single one of those. In the third quarter, while the Suns were trying to pull away, Kawhi Leonard had 12 points in typical Kawhi fashion by hitting just absurdly contested and difficult shots like they're nothing, and showing no emotion while completely decimating the opposing defense. And also, he set up a couple teammates for buckets on the way, which, like I said, allowed the Clippers to stay in the game, giving them time for Kawhi to hit even harder in the fourth quarter, where he dropped 13 points, including knocking down a couple huge and timely threes that extended the Clippers' lead really late into the game with just a few minutes to go. And all in all, Kawhi finished this one with 38 points on 54% shooting. Let's go with 5 boards and 5 dimes, doing everything the Clippers need him to do to help them not just stay in the game, but eventually take a lead into the final few minutes. I said in my playoff predictions video that for the Clippers to not just keep this thing close, but maybe even win the series, they would need Kawhi Leonard to be absolutely unstoppable, the best player on the court. He was exactly that. In this game, out-dueling Kevin Durant, out-dueling Devin Booker as well. Kawhi was incredible. If they can get this Kawhi over the course of this series and maybe even an extended playoff run, if they can get out of this matchup, the Clippers are in a really good spot going forward. He was looking like one of the best players on the planet, which he typically does when the playoffs roll around. So yeah, Kawhi was amazing. Super excited to see him going forward. But it wasn't just him. It wasn't like a Kawhi solo act. The Clippers' depth as well stepped up. This is a spot where they have a big advantage in this series. The Suns are pretty thin overall. overall, well, the Clippers have a lot of great role players who can step up, and they got a lot out of almost everybody on this roster. Eric Gordon had 19 points on 50% shooting, Norman Powell had 14 points, Terrence Mann had 10, 4, and 2, Plumlee had 7 points and 11 boards. It was a huge win for them in terms of the depth play. While the Suns are going to rely a lot on Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, and Chris Paul, the Clippers are going to rely on Kawhi mainly, and they need those other guys on the peripheral to step up in a big way, which is exactly what they did. When Kawhi is this dominant and the role players are also playing well, the Clippers look good. This is the team I thought we were going to see all season when I predicted them to win the title. They were going to get great play from their stars, Kawhi and Paul George if he was healthy, and great play from the role players as well, making them just an unstoppable force. And they kind of look like that in this game, although I do still think not having PG could ultimately be a death sentence. But overall, it was a really great performance from the Clippers. But before we close out on talking about this game, there's one more Clipper I have to talk about in particular, and that is Russell Westbrook. Russ, if you just take a look at the box score, you probably would think he had a pretty rough game. I mean, he had 9 points on 3 of 19 shooting. It was terrible for him offensively. He continued to go for shots that he probably shouldn't have taken, and I do think that Russ should maybe be a little less aggressive on the offensive end, although they are going to need him to step up and score and, play well overall to win this series without PG. But if you watch the game, he actually, despite that terrible shooting performance, was incredibly impactful, particularly on the defensive end. He played some great defense on Kevin Durant in the first quarter. Honestly, probably the best defender on KD for most of the game. Even when he guarded guys like Devin Booker, or Chris Paul, or whoever he was on, Russ was playing some really solid defense, getting a few steals and a few blocks throughout the game. He also dished out 8 assists, which was huge in helping the Clippers role players really get going and get into a rhythm. He grabbed 11 boards, many of which were offensive, and a lot of those came in super critical moments. At the end of the game with less than a minute to go, the Clippers missed a shot. I think it was Kawhi, and Russ was able to grab an offensive board, extending their possession, giving them a 14-second shot clock. They would then again miss, but this time the ball went towards DeAndre Ayton. Russ tipped it up and it went off Ayton's hand, once again giving the Clippers another chance to score. He just continued to extend this game, extend possessions. He made hustle plays, grabbed offensive rebounds. He was locked in, even though the shooting was just not great overall on the night. And this all came to a head at the end of the game when Devin Booker attacked the basket on probably their final legitimate possession, and Russ blocked him. And not only did he block him, but the ball went towards him as he was falling out of bounds. Devin Booker looked to argue with the ref, and Russ threw it off of Devin Booker, giving the Clippers the ball with no shot clock going forward. They were up 3, so they knocked down a couple of free throws, ended up winning this game by 5. Russ not only closed out the game with this high-level defense, but also the hustle play to ensure that the Suns didn't get any more opportunities. He was ultimately one of the biggest reasons why the Clippers won this game alongside Kawhi Leonard. A lot of people are just going to look at the box score and tell you, oh, Russ was terrible, he choked in the playoffs again. But no, this was a legitimate great Russ game if you just take a look at the full impact. They need more of this from Russ. They need the defense, the tenacity, the hustle plays. This is the value that Russ can bring even if he isn't shooting well, and I think it's a great promising step forward for the Clippers. If he continues to play like this and the shooting numbers turn around a bit, the Clippers are in a really good spot going forward. He looked amazing in this game. I know a lot of people are going to comment below, how can a guy be good when he shot 3 of 19? He could, and he did it exactly in this game. If you don't believe me, go back and watch it because the impact that he made was huge. A couple more players I want to mention for Phoenix include Devin Booker, who deserves a big shout out. He was great in this game. He had 26 points while playing some of the best defense of his entire career. This might have been the best defensive game he's ever had. He racked up 4 steals and 3 blocks in the process. He made huge hustle plays. He was just all around great. If the Suns continue to get this from Devin Booker, they're in a pretty good spot going forward. And I think people are really going to start to realize in this series just how good of a defender Devin Booker has become. He's worked really hard on that side of his game, and it's paid dividends. He was amazing defensively. They're going to need more of that from him against the Clippers' offensive threats. Torrey Craig also was great. He had 22 points on 9 of 12 shooting. Chris Paul struggled. He shot just 2 of 8, but did dish out 10 dimes and secured 11 boards, coming 3 points short of a triple-double. They're going to need a bit more from him offensively. They need more efficiency there. And as a whole, they just need more from the peripheral guys. They got just 10 bench points all game, while the Clippers had 34 of them. That's a huge discrepancy, and I think we are going to see a win towards the Clippers with bench points more and more over the course of this series, but it can't be that far apart. You've got to get a little bit of production from the rest of your guys. Also, for some reason, the Suns kind of just stopped going to Kevin Durant in the last few minutes, which I don't quite understand. Kevin Durant is your best offensive player. You've got to give him the ball in those crucial moments, and I think the Suns maybe learn that going forward, but if they did it, it's going to be really tough for them in the clutch continuing on. Overall, great win from the Clippers. I think the Suns can still feel all right about the way this game went, but there are some areas to be concerned about. Next up, we have Lakers versus Grizzlies, which is the game that started off the day, which I was really excited about. I'm glad they put this one first because it's one of the most divisive series on Twitter. Some people think the Grizzlies are going to destroy the Lakers because they're frauds. Some people think the Lakers are championship contenders. And overall, the Lakers showed a lot of promise in this game. They were really good, especially Anthony Davis. He dominated this game early, taking advantage of that weakened Grizzlies front court that we talked about in my series preview for this, while just also completely destroying Memphis while he played defense. For some reason, they just continued to keep challenging Anthony Davis down low. He racked up a few early blocks. And overall, it was just a dominant effort from Anthony Davis front to back. He would finish the game with 22 points, 12 boards, 3 assists, 3 steals, and 7 blocks. An incredible two-way game that shows when he's healthy, he's one of the most impactful players in the entire league. Now, he did have an injury scare in this game right before halftime, I believe it was, where he grabbed his arm and he's like, I can't feel it. Apparently, it was just some kind of stinger. Maybe he hit his elbow, and I had something before where my elbow kind of hit the ground while I was hooping. I fell out of the air, and it kind of just tingled all over, and I couldn't really move it much, but eventually, after a few minutes, I was good to go, so maybe it was something similar with him. But overall, he was still able to come back into the game and play really, really well. If he continues to play like this, it's a big problem for the Grizzlies, although on the other side of the front court matchup, Jaren Jackson Jr. also had an amazing performance. He finished the game with 31 points, 5 boards, 4 assists, a steal, and 2 blocks, while shooting over 60% from the field and staying out of foul trouble, which is critical for him going forward. He was not only great defensively like he typically is, he's probably going to win Defensive Player of the Year, but also his offense was amazing, and that's something that I don't think people have realized quite yet. He's gotten better and better offensively. His footwork, his moves in the post, his ability to knock down shots too has gotten more consistent. They're going to need a lot out of Jaren going forward, in particular because Ja Morant may miss game 2. Ja had a solid game, putting up 18 points before eventually Xing with a hand injury after he fell out of the air on a charge attempt. It was a scary injury. He didn't re-enter after this, and apparently his status for Game 2 is in jeopardy. If Ja Morant misses any significant time for this series, it's a massive blow to the Grizzlies and might honestly put them to rest immediately because, like I said, the Lakers looked really good in this one. The Grizzlies need all hands on deck. LeBron had a solid game. He put up over 20 points, although he didn't have to do too much because AD was really good, as well as D'Angelo Russell, who had a great showing with 19, 4, and 7. But the real story of this game for the Lakers were their other guys. In particular, Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura were amazing. In the third quarter, the Lakers swung basically all momentum in their favor because Rui had 12 points on 4-4 shooting from downtown. He had 9 more in the fourth quarter, finishing with 28 points, which not only led the Lakers in his playoff debut, but also was the highest scoring total of his entire Lakers tenure. If they get more play like this from Rui, it's going to be really difficult for the Grizzlies to get these wins. Now, I don't think Rui's going to put up 28 points again, but if he can just be a consistent outside shooting threat, it is huge for Los Angeles. Meanwhile, Austin Reeves was also getting going. He dropped 14 points in the fourth quarter on perfect shooting to just slam the door shut in this game with the Lakers, getting an overall pretty convincing win. The depth looked great. LeBron and AD were fantastic. This roster just showcased all of its new strengths that they've gotten since the deadline moves and why this team is looked at by many as a potential threat in the Western Conference. When they play like this, LeBron is great. Anthony Davis is dominating on both sides of the court. D'Lo is producing offensively. The role players are stepping up. The Lakers feel very difficult to beat. Now, I don't think their peripheral guys are going to give this much production going forward, but at the same time, it wasn't like a dominant offensive effort from LeBron and AD. I still think they have another gear to get into. They both dropped just over 20 points. If they turn up and are able to drop like 30 a game over the course of this series, the Lakers get really, really scary, especially if Ja Morant misses a significant amount of time. They're going to need him to come back ASAP if they want to go ahead and stay in this series for long. Although I will say Tyus Jones played well in his minutes when Ja Morant went out. I just think having Ja completely changes the dynamic of the series. They need more from Jaren Jackson Jr., even more than he did if Ja is going to miss time. Although Triple J was amazing. Desmond Bane is going to have to shoot better. He shot just 6 of 18. The Lakers played good defense on him. But overall, the Lakers have to feel really good about this game while the Grizzlies have to be a bit nervous. Next up, we had Heat versus Bucks, which continued the theme of injuries in this year's playoffs, as Giannis left the game after just 10 minutes due to falling on his back pretty hard. Tyler Hero broke his hand actually diving for a loose ball. then proceeded to weirdly stay in the game for a couple of possessions. He even at one point caught the ball in the corner and shot a three with a broken hand. It didn't go in, but honestly, it looked really good for someone who literally shot with a broken hand. It's going to keep him out of the rest of this series and at least for 4 to 6 weeks if the Heat are able to make it out of this first round matchup. So this most likely ends Tyler Herro's playoff run, which is really unfortunate for him. Hopefully he's able to be good. Same with Giannis. He's supposed to be back for game 2, but it's kind of up in the air. I just don't know what's going on with all these injuries right now in the playoffs. It feels like we cannot escape them. Someone is getting hurt time and time again. Josh Hart in the Knicks series apparently is potentially questionable for next game because he twisted his ankle. I don't know what's happening. Hopefully everyone is able to stay healthy going forward. Everyone that seems to be injured is able to come back ASAP because the playoffs have looked amazing, but if injuries start to pile up, it's going to really wreck a lot of these series. But shifting back to this game in particular, the Heat were actually able to take a 1-0 series lead with Jimmy Butler doing typical playoff Jimmy things. He had 35 points, 5 rebounds, and 11 dimes with some high-level defense. Bam Adebayo also played great defensively while putting up 22 points, 9 rebounds, and 7 assists. If the Heat are able to sustain this production from their star guys, there's a potential that they could make this a more interesting series than I thought. I predicted that the Bucks would end up winning this series in 4 games in a pretty clean sweep. But ultimately, we'll see what happens with the Giannis injury. Hopefully he's able to be back soon. And if he is back, I still think the Bucks kind of put away the Heat almost immediately. Chris Middleton was pretty good in this game. He had 33 points, which is really promising. They need him to be amazing for this run. Bobby Portis also had 21 points. Drew Holiday shot really poorly, but did dish out 16 dimes. I was kind of disappointed with Brook Lopez's defense overall. I don't think he was great against Bam Adebayo. And also, I feel like with him playing drop coverage over the course of the season, typically, he's done a pretty good job of closing out on mid-range shooters quickly, but at this game, he kind of just seemed lazy on that end. He really wasn't closing out as hard as he typically does. I don't know what was going on there, but ultimately, they need him to be a bit better defensively, play like the defensive player of the year candidate he's been all season. And if he does that, if Giannis comes back, Chris continues to play like this, I still think the Bucks get this done in 5 or 6 games, but this is a big win for the Heat if they do want to try and pull off an eventual all-time upset. And finally, we had Nuggets versus Timberwolves, which was easily the worst game of the day. The Nuggets just completely outmatched the Timberwolves. They really never stood a chance. Offensively, the Nuggets were dominating them. Jokic was great. Michael Porter Jr. was great. Jamal Murray was knocking down some big shots. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope felt like he couldn't miss from 3. Same with Bruce Brown. While on the other side, the Timberwolves offense completely stagnated. It looked hideous. They could not really get any open shots. Credit to the Denver defense, which looked really good in this game. But even wide open shots, the Timberwolves just couldn't hit anything. Cat and Anthony Edwards combined to shoot 11 of 30 on this game. If they continue to play like this, this is not only going to be a sweep, but it's going to be like a 20-point win for the Nuggets almost every single night. Denver looked really good. I think people forgot how good they are. I do still think the Timberwolves can make this like a 5-game series, but the Nuggets are just the way better team. With all that being said, I appreciate y'all watching. Please make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these videos. Also, comment down below what your biggest takeaways were from these games. Tonight, as I'm recording this video and you're probably seeing it, we have Kings versus Warriors game 2, which I'm super excited about, as well as the Sixers-Nets second game, which I think could be good, but overall the Sixers, like I said in my previous video, are just a lot better, so I wouldn't be surprised if that ends up being a blowout. So there's a chance you don't get one of these videos tomorrow, depending on how Kings-Warriors goes. If it is an amazing game, maybe I'll make a full video on that one. But regardless, I appreciate y'all supporting this video and all these playoff videos so far. Your support has been amazing, easily the best month on the channel so far. And all in all, I just can't thank y'all enough for continuing to support this channel. With all that being said, appreciate y'all watching. I'll see y'all later. Real one, safe back.